Hereinafter, we will talk about the so-called offset functions. These are functions that allow us to move and accordingly access different rows in a dataset or window with respect to the current row, or access to the values at the beginning or end of the window. The functions lag, lead access to the data from the next or the previous rows of the dataset. These functions may be used, for example, to compare a value of the current row to a value of the next row or the previous one. The functions lag, lead have three parameters. A column whose value should be returned is an obligatory parameter. The number of rows to offset, it is equal to 1 by default. And a value which should be returned if null value is returned after offsetting. Then the obligatory keyword over comes. The partition by clause is optional for the offset function, and in case when partition by section is absent, the whole dataset will be processed. But the order by clause is obligatory and defines the rows order, which an offset function will be applied to. By means of these functions, we can get a result, which would be impossible without using self-join used to a table. In the example, we see usage of the window functions lag, lead. The window functions sort the dataset by the column time ID. For each day, we want to display the sales amount for the previous and the next day, so we set offset equal to 1. That's a default value, therefore we could omit it. So for the first row, the lag function returns null, because the value for the previous day is unknown to us. October the 10th is the first row of the dataset. But for October the 11th, the lag function returns us the sales value for October the 10th. For October the 12th, it returns the sales value for October the 11th, and so on. The lead function works in the similar way. For October the 10th, we get the sales amount for October the 11th. For October the 11th, we get the sales amount for October the 12th, and so on. For the last row, we get the null value. Functions first value, last value return the first and the last value in the window. As a parameter, they take a column, which value should be returned. Then the keyword over comes. The partition by clause is optional, while the order by clause is obligatory. And let's consider an example of using the function first value. This query returns a sales report by channels and months. The function first value divides the dataset into partitions by months. We get 4 partitions. Within each partition, the rows are sorted by sales amount in ascending order. The function first value returns a value of minimum sales amount for each rows of a partition. The function last value works in a similar way. However, the result we get after running of a query will be unexpected. The sales values in the columns sales and max sales are the same. The function returned the last row of the window. And here we come close to the concept of a frame or a window frame. In this video, we haven't considered examples with window frames definition. All window functions didn't include a frame clause in its definition. Frame allows us to define explicitly in which row window starts and in which row it ends. When a frame is not defined explicitly, then a window starts in the first row of a partition or the whole dataset if partitions are not defined, and ends in the current row. Thus, if window frames are not defined, the function last value will always return a value of the current row regardless of sorting. Let's consider one more example. We change sorting direction of the column X, however, we get the same result. The aggregate function array ag can explain such behavior. The function collects an array of the values from the first row to the current one. Changing sorting direction while forming these arrays, we get different datasets. However, if we pay attention to the last values of these arrays, they will always be the same. This gives us a key to understanding how the last value function works in the case when the window frames are not defined explicitly. Well, in a little more detail, we will discuss this topic in the next video.